The council chamber was quiet. Too quiet. Overlord Krath stood at the center of the massive room, his forearms crossed behind his back. Around him, the High Council of the Valthari Empire sat in their floating chairs. Each member wore the traditional silver robes that marked their status. They had ruled 47 species across 200 worlds. Today, they would decide the fate of a 48th. A hologram flickered to life above the central platform. It showed a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. The planet looked peaceful, covered in oceans and clouds. Small lights dotted the night side where cities glowed. "This is New Jeju," Krath said. His voice echoed in the chamber. "A human colony. 2 million inhabitants. Minimal defenses. They call themselves the United Earth Systems." He waved one hand and the image changed. Now it showed crude ships with simple designs. Look at their vessels. No energy shields. Chemical propulsion. Kinetic weapons. They are primitives. Council member Tresh leaned forward. "How many worlds do they control?" 12 colonies, Krath replied. Plus their homeworld, Earth. They achieved faster than light travel only 80 years ago. In that time, we have expanded across 30 systems. Another council member spoke. "What value does New Jeju hold?" Krath smiled. "Rich mineral deposits, perfect atmosphere. The system has 3 habitable planets. If we take New Jeju, the others will follow. The humans will surrender or retreat. They always do. That last part was important. In 300 years, the Valthari had never lost a war. Other species saw their ships and surrendered. Those who fought learned quickly that resistance was pointless. The Valthari were superior in every way that mattered. Better weapons, better shields, better tactics. Evolution had made them perfect warriors. "I vote for annexation," Tresh said. One by one, the council members agreed. The vote was unanimous. Krath would lead the fleet to New Jeju. They would offer surrender terms. If the humans refused, the Valthari would take the planet by force. It was a simple plan. It had worked 47 times before. In the back of the chamber, Sub-Commander Vex said nothing. He had studied the humans more carefully than his superiors. Something about them worried him. They came from a harsh world. Their history was filled with wars against each other. They had survived ice ages, diseases, predators. But Vex kept his concerns quiet. Questioning the council was not wise. 3 weeks later, the Valthari fleet arrived at New Jeju. Governor Dae-jung was in his office when the alarm started. Red lights flashed across every screen. His assistant burst through the door, face pale. "Sir, we have multiple contacts entering the system. 20 capital ships, 40 escort vessels. They're not responding to hails." Dae-jung felt his stomach drop. He had heard the reports about the Valthari. Everyone had. They were conquering their way across this sector of space. Now they had come to New Jeju. A message came through. The face on the screen had 4 eyes and gray skin. Overlord Krath looked almost bored as he spoke. "Humans of New Jeju, you are now under the protection of the Valthari Empire. Surrender your weapons. Deactivate your defenses. Submit to our authority. You have 1 hour to comply." The screen went dark. Dae-jung stared at his hands. They were shaking. He had children on this planet, grandchildren. 2 million people depended on his decision. He knew what the Valthari did to conquered species. Slavery, forced labor, stripped resources. His people would lose everything. He pressed the emergency broadcast button. "All civilians move to underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. Military personnel to your stations. We will not surrender." His assistant looked shocked. "Sir, we can't fight them. We have 6 defense platforms and 3 patrol ships. They'll destroy us, I know," Dae-jung said quietly. "But we can buy time. Send the emergency beacon to Earth. Make sure it gets through." 1 hour later, the Valthari began their attack. The defense platforms fired first. Missiles streaked toward the enemy fleet. Krath watched them come, unimpressed. His ship's shields absorbed the impacts easily. The platforms were destroyed in seconds, torn apart by energy beams that cut through metal like paper. The 3 human patrol ships tried to fight. They were brave but hopelessly outmatched. 2 were destroyed immediately. The 3rd managed to ram a Valthari escort vessel before exploding. Krath noted the tactic with mild interest. Desperate but pointless. Then the orbital bombardment began. Cities burned. Military bases vanished in flashes of light. The Valthari were efficient and precise. They targeted infrastructure, communications, power plants. Within 3 hours, New Jeju was conquered. Ground troops began landing to secure key locations. Krath reviewed the reports with satisfaction. Minimal casualties on his side. The planet was his. The humans would learn to accept their new masters, just like all the others before them. What he didn't know was that the emergency beacon had reached Earth. Admiral Jiwoo was asleep when the call came. She woke to find her communication device flashing red. Priority 1. That meant only one thing. She answered immediately. Admiral, you need to come to command immediately. New Jeju is under attack. Jiwoo was dressed and moving in less than 2 minutes. By the time she reached United Earth Command, the situation room was full. Generals, admirals, politicians, everyone looked grim. The screens showed footage from New Jeju, smoke rising from cities, alien ships in orbit, bodies in the streets. Jiwoo's jaw tightened. Her brother had lived on New Jeju. Past tense. She pushed the thought away and focused on the mission. The Secretary General spoke first. The Valthari Empire has invaded New Jeju without warning or provocation. 2 million civilians are under occupation. We need options. One general shook his head. We can't win this. Look at their fleet. They have technology decades ahead of ours. Maybe we should negotiate. Negotiate what? Another admiral snapped. They don't negotiate. They conquer. Give them New Jeju and they'll take another colony. Then another. Where does it stop? The arguing continued for several minutes. Jiwoo listened in silence. Finally, the Secretary General turned to her. Admiral Jiwoo, you commanded our forces during the colony wars. You've never lost an engagement. What do you recommend? Jiwoo looked at the screens, at the burning cities, at the alien ships. She thought about her brother, about 2 million people who had done nothing wrong except live in the wrong place. We fight, she said simply. But Admiral, she held up one hand. They think we're weak because our technology is simpler. They think we'll surrender because that's what others did. They're wrong. We mobilize every available ship. We hit them fast and we hit them hard. We show them that attacking humanity was the biggest mistake they ever made. The Secretary General nodded slowly. You have full authorization. Take the Indomitable and whatever fleet you need. Bring our people home, Jiwoo saluted. Yes, sir. We'll make them regret this. 48 hours later, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Jeju system. Krath received the alert with confusion. The humans were coming back? That made no sense. They had to know they couldn't win. He counted the ships. 30 human vessels against his 60. This would be over quickly. What Krath didn't understand was that humans didn't calculate odds the same way. They didn't fight based on logic or acceptable losses. They fought because their people needed them. They fought because surrender was worse than death. They fought because millions of years of evolution had taught them one simple lesson. Never stop fighting. Admiral Jiwoo sat in her command chair aboard the Indomitable. Around her, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency. Captain Taeyang stood nearby, checking his marine deployment plans. Dr. Minji monitored enemy ship positions. Lieutenant Hyunwoo was already in his fighter, ready to launch. All ships, this is Admiral Jiwoo. Today we take back what's ours. They think we'll run. They think we'll surrender. Let's show them what humans do when you threaten our families. All ships, attack pattern Delta, no mercy, no retreat. The human fleet accelerated toward the enemy. The Valthari opened fire first. Energy beams reached across space. Human ships took hits, shields failing, armor burning. 3 ships were destroyed in the first minute. Any reasonable species would have retreated. The humans kept coming. They launched everything they had. Nuclear missiles, weapons the Valthari considered primitive and outdated. But there were hundreds of them. Overwhelming point defenses. Kamikaze drones crashed into shields, weakening them. Human fighters closed to knife-fighting range where Valthari advantages meant nothing. Hyunwoo's squadron dove into the enemy formation. His wingman died in the first pass. He kept going, firing until his weapons were empty, then ramming his damaged fighter into a Valthari cruiser's engine port. He ejected at the last second, his escape pod tumbling through the battle. The Indomitable took hit after hit but refused to die. Jiwoo ordered damage control teams to sections that should have been abandoned. They went anyway. Fires were contained. Breaches were sealed. The ship kept fighting. Krath watched in growing disbelief as his fleet took casualties. These primitives should be dead. Their ships were burning wrecks. Yet they continued fighting. One human destroyer, Its entire front section destroyed, still fired its remaining weapons. Another ship, completely powerless, drifted into a Valthari escort and detonated its reactor. This wasn't how wars worked. This wasn't logical. When the battle ended, 3 months had passed since the first battle at New Jeju. The war had spread like fire across 6 star systems. Every week brought new fighting. Every day brought more casualties. The Valthari Empire sent more ships, more soldiers, more resources. They expected the humans to break. Instead, humanity grew stronger. Arcturus Station floated in orbit above a dead moon. It was humanity's largest space station, home to 50,000 people. Docks, refineries, shipyards, habitats, everything needed to support the war effort. The Valthari wanted it badly. Overlord Krath studied the tactical display. His fleet surrounded the station completely. No ships could get in or out. No supplies could reach the defenders. Standard siege tactics said the humans should surrender within 2 weeks, maybe 3. Their food would run out. Their air recyclers would fail. They would have no choice. "How long has it been?" he asked Vex. 5 weeks, Overlord. Krath's expression darkened. "Why haven't they surrendered?" Vex brought up sensor readings. "They're rationing food to minimum levels, converting waste into usable materials. Some sections have no power at all, but life signs remain. They're surviving on emergency supplies that should have run out weeks ago." Inside Arcturus Station, Captain Tae Yang moved through the darkened corridors. His breath formed clouds in the freezing air. Power was being saved for critical systems only. Heat was a luxury they couldn't afford. He found his Marines gathered in what used to be a cargo bay. 200 soldiers, down from 800 when the siege began. They looked thin, exhausted, but their weapons were clean and their spirits were high. "Captain," one Marine said, "the enemy tried to board Section 7 again. We pushed them back." Tae Yang nodded. "Casualties?" 12 wounded. 3 dead, but we killed 30 of theirs. "Good, rest while you can. Admiral Jiwoo's relief fleet should be here in 48 hours. "We'll be ready, sir." Tae Yang moved on, checking each section. He found Sergeant Haewon in the medical bay. She was treating a Marine who had taken shrapnel from an explosion. The soldier should have been unconscious from pain. Instead, he was arguing about returning to his post. "You're not going anywhere," Haewon said firmly. "Not until I say so." "But Sergeant, no arguments. You don't get to die until I give permission. Understood?" The Marine smiled weakly. "Yes, Sergeant." Tae Yang watched Haewon work. She had kept people alive through impossible injuries, wounds that would kill any other species. Humans survived because she refused to let them go. It was more than skill. It was pure stubborn determination. "How are supplies?" he asked quietly. Haewon didn't look up from her work. "We're out of painkillers, low on antibiotics, making bandages from spare clothing. But we're managing. Can we hold another 2 days?" "We'll hold as long as needed, Captain." These people didn't survive 5 weeks to give up now. 48 hours later, Admiral Jiwoo's fleet arrived. The battle was fierce. Jiwoo had learned from previous engagements. Her ships moved in coordinated strikes, using the station itself as cover. Nuclear missiles saturated Valthari point defenses. Fighter squadrons led by Lieutenant Hyun-woo harassed enemy formations. The Valthari fleet was larger and better armed, but they were unprepared for human tactics. Jiwoo didn't try to win a traditional battle. She created chaos, exploited confusion, and punched through to the station. Supply ships docked with Arcturus while the Indomitable and her escorts held the line. Food, medicine, ammunition, and replacement parts poured into the station. Wounded were evacuated. Fresh troops arrived. When Tae Yang's Marines saw the relief ships, they didn't cheer. They simply returned to their posts, ready to fight again. That reaction terrified the Valthari observers more than any battle cry would have. The Valthari fleet commander realized he couldn't maintain the siege. His ships were taking too much damage. His crews were exhausted. Worse, the humans showed no signs of giving up. He ordered a retreat. It was the first time in Valthari history that they abandoned a military objective. Aboard the Indomitable, Dr. Min-ji worked in her laboratory. She had been studying captured Valthari soldiers and equipment for weeks. Now she had answers that explained everything. She called Admiral Jiwoo to her lab. "I know why we're winning," Min-ji said without greeting. She brought up holographic displays showing Valthari biology and psychology. "Look at their homeworld. Paradise conditions, abundant food, few predators, mild climate. They evolved without significant challenges. Jiwoo studied the data. So? So their entire psychology is built around logical decisions. When something becomes too costly, they stop doing it. It's efficient, smart even, but we're different. Minji pulled up Earth's history. Ice ages, plagues, predators, wars. We evolved through constant crisis. We learned that giving up meant death. Persistence became part of our DNA. You're saying they calculate losses and we don't? Exactly. They fight until it stops making sense. We fight until we win or die. To them, we're insane. To us, it's survival. Minji leaned forward. Admiral, we're persistence hunters on a galactic scale. We don't need to be stronger or faster. We just need to outlast them, and we will. Jiwoo absorbed this information. It matched what she had observed in battle. The Valthari were skilled warriors, but they retreated when losses exceeded expectations. Humans never did. Can we use this? She asked. We already are, Minji replied. Every battle where we refuse to quit, every station that holds beyond possible, every ship that keeps fighting after it should be dead, it breaks their understanding of warfare. They don't know how to fight an enemy that won't acknowledge defeat. The next week brought tragedy that would reshape the war. The colony, Transport New Busan, was carrying 3,000 civilians to a safer system. Families, children, old people. It had minimal weapons designed for cargo, not combat. When Valthari raiders intercepted the ship, the outcome seemed certain. The Valthari commander ordered the New Busan to surrender. The human captain, Young Ho, looked at his crew, at the civilians depending on him. He thought about what surrender meant. Slavery, abuse, his people used as property. He made a choice. All hands, secure for impact. Passengers, brace positions. This is the captain. We're not letting them take us. The New Busan turned toward the largest Valthari ship. Its engines went to maximum thrust. The Valthari realized what was happening too late. They fired everything they had. Explosions tore through the transport's hull. Fires spread through compartments. People died, but the ship didn't stop. The New Busan struck the Valthari cruiser at full velocity. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships exploded in a brief, bright flash. 3,000 humans died. So did 800 Valthari. There were no survivors, no last messages, just silence. News spread across both human and Valthari space. For humans, it became a rallying cry. The civilians of the New Busan had shown that even unarmed transports could fight. That surrender was not an option. Recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. For the Valthari, it was horror. Why would prey choose death? It made no sense. It violated every rule of warfare they understood. Fear began spreading through their ranks. Lieutenant Hyunwoo had become a legend among both humans and Valthari. 2 weeks earlier, his fighter had been destroyed in combat. His wingman confirmed the kill. Valthari sensors showed his escape pod damaged, life support failing. He was listed as killed in action. Then he showed up at the next battle. Hyunwoo had survived by cannibalizing his destroyed fighter and a damaged Valthari scout ship he found drifting. He spent 12 days in vacuum and freezing cold with limited oxygen, building a functional craft from wreckage. When he was done, he flew it back to human lines. His jury-rigged fighter shouldn't have worked, but it did, and Hyunwoo immediately volunteered for the next combat mission. In that battle, he destroyed 3 Valthari interceptors before running out of ammunition. He rammed a 4th, ejected, and was recovered by a human rescue ship. The Valthari military created a new classification for him, Phoenix-class threat, termination priority alpha. It was the first time they had designated a single enemy fighter pilot as a strategic concern. When other pilots heard this, they laughed. If one human could terrify the Valthari that much, what would thousands do? In the Valthari command center, Overlord Krath reviewed reports with growing anger. 6 major battles, 6 tactical victories. They had held the field every time. They had inflicted heavier casualties. They controlled more territory. Yet somehow the humans were stronger now than when the war started. Sub-Commander Vex stood nearby, quiet as always. Krath finally turned to him. "Explain this to me," Krath demanded. "We've broken their fleets 3 times. Why aren't they suing for peace?" Vex chose his words carefully. "Because they don't see defeat the same way we do. When we lose ships, we calculate replacement time and adjust strategy. When they lose ships, they build more and attack harder. Every defeat makes them more determined. That's irrational." "Yes, Overlord. That's what makes them dangerous. Krath stared at the tactical displays. For the first time in his career, he felt something unfamiliar. Not quite fear, not yet, but close. What do you recommend? Vex hesitated. What he wanted to say was retreat. Negotiate peace. Cut losses before they became catastrophic. But saying that would be treason. Fortify our positions, he said instead. Prepare for counterattacks. The humans are moving from defense to offense. 8 months into the war, everything changed. Admiral Jiwoo stood before the assembled fleet commanders in the war room. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the entire theater of operations. Red markers indicated Valthari positions. Blue showed human forces. The red vastly outnumbered the blue, but that was about to change. We've been fighting defensively, Jiwoo said, protecting our colonies, holding our ground. That ends today. From now on, we hunt. She gestured and the display changed. New blue markers appeared throughout Valthari space. Supply routes, logistics centers, fuel depots, shipyards far behind the front lines. The Valthari control more territory than we do. They have more ships, more resources, better technology. But all of that needs supply lines. Food, fuel, ammunition, spare parts. They're stretched thin trying to occupy 6 systems. We're going to break them. One commander raised his hand. Admiral, that's guerrilla warfare. Hit and run. It could take years. Jiwoo smiled coldly. Then we fight for years. The Valthari think in terms of campaigns and battles. They want decisive engagements. We're going to give them chaos instead. Small fleets, constant raids, never stopping, never resting. We're going to teach them what humans learned millennia ago. You don't need to win battles to win wars. Captain Tae Yang spoke up. What about the colonies they've occupied? The occupation forces need supplies too. When their convoys stop arriving, they'll have to choose starve or retreat. Either way, we win. Jiwoo looked at each commander in turn. This is total war. No safe zones. No rear areas. Everywhere they go, we'll be there. Questions? There were none. The commanders understood. This was the kind of warfare humans excelled at. Patience, persistence, slowly bleeding the enemy until they broke. Operation Enduring Fury begins in 6 hours, Jiwoo said. Show them what it means to fight humans. The Valthari logistics officer stared at his screen in disbelief. Another convoy destroyed? His superior asked. Yes, Commander. The supply fleet heading to Sector 7. All 12 ships lost. The attack came from nowhere. Human vessels appeared, destroyed our escorts, and vanished before reinforcements arrived. That's the 4th convoy this week. 5th, Commander. We just received word about Sector 3. 6 fuel tankers destroyed. The Valthari commander felt his stomach tighten. This wasn't normal warfare. The humans weren't fighting for territory or strategic objectives. They were destroying logistics, making occupation impossible. It was brilliant and terrifying. How are they appearing in our rear areas? We have patrols, sensors. They're using civilian transponders and hiding in asteroid fields. By the time we detect them, they've already attacked. And Commander, there's worse news. Worse than losing 5 convoys? The humans are hitting infrastructure too. They destroyed a shipyard yesterday, a refinery the day before. Our replacement rate can't keep up with our losses anymore. The commander understood what that meant. Eventually, ships would run out of fuel. Weapons would run out of ammunition. Troops would run out of food. The occupation would collapse not from military defeat, but from logistical starvation. Captain Tae Yang led his Marines through the narrow corridors of the Valthari command ship. The boarding operation had been brutal. Marines died in the initial breach. More fell fighting room by room through the massive vessel, but they kept pushing forward. Sergeant Hae Won worked behind the advancing troops, keeping wounded soldiers alive long enough to evacuate them. She had lost count of how many times she had said her favorite phrase, "You don't get to die until I say so." One Marine took a blast to the chest. He went down hard. Hae Won was there in seconds. "I'm done, Sergeant," the Marine whispered. "Tell my family, you're not done," Hae Won snapped. She worked with quick, precise movements. Sealing wounds, stabilizing vitals. "You're going to tell them yourself. Now stop talking and let me work." The Marine survived. They usually did when Hae Won was around. Tae Yang reached the command center after 2 hours of fighting. The Valthari captain was waiting, weapon drawn. They fought briefly. The alien was skilled, but Tae Yang had been fighting for 8 months straight. "Experience 1. Your ship is ours. Tai Yang said. The Valthari captain looked at the humans holding his bridge, at the bodies of his crew, at the damage throughout his ship. You've won nothing. My fleet will destroy this vessel with you inside it. Tai Yang smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Then they'll have to destroy their own command ship. Either way, you lose. That's the difference between us. We're willing to die to achieve our objectives. Are you? The Valthari captain had no answer. An hour later, Valthari reinforcements arrived. They faced an impossible choice: lose their command ship or destroy it with humans inside. They chose destruction. The ship was torn apart by friendly fire, but Tai Yang and his surviving Marines escaped in stolen Valthari shuttles, having downloaded the enemy's tactical database first. The mission was a success even though the ship was lost. News of the raid spread through Valthari forces. The humans had boarded a capital ship, captured it, and forced the Valthari to destroy their own vessel. Morale collapsed across 3 sectors. Troops began requesting transfers away from human-controlled space. Dr. Minji worked with the communications team to prepare the broadcast. It would be transmitted throughout Valthari space on all frequencies. Impossible to block or ignore. Admiral Jiwoo reviewed the message one final time. You're sure this will work? Minji nodded. Their psychology requires logical decision-making. We're giving them information that makes continued war illogical. Plus, the message in their own language shows we've studied them, that we understand them. That's psychologically powerful. Send it, Jiwoo ordered. Across the Valthari Empire, screens flickered. A human woman appeared, speaking perfect Valthari. Dr. Minji's voice was calm and clear. People of the Valthari Empire, you attacked our colony of New Jeju 3 months ago. You killed 2 million of our people. You thought we would surrender. You were wrong. The image changed, showing human shipyards working around the clock, factories producing weapons, soldiers training, cities mobilizing for war. We are not like the species you conquered before. We do not calculate acceptable losses. We do not surrender when odds are against us. We fight until we win or until we die. There is no middle ground. More images. Human fleets. Marines boarding enemy ships. Damaged vessels still fighting. The new Busan ramming the Valthari cruiser. You wanted our worlds. Now we will take yours. You can surrender and negotiate fair terms. Or you can continue fighting and learn why no predator on Earth ever hunted humans twice. The choice is yours. But understand this, we will never stop. We will never quit. We will chase you across the galaxy if necessary. The broadcast ended. Silence followed throughout Valthari space. Then panic began. Families demanded their government end the war. Soldiers requested reassignment. Entire fleets reported desertion problems. The Valthari High Council convened emergency sessions. The humans had weaponized information as effectively as any missile. Subcommander Vex made his decision. In the middle of the night. He had watched the war deteriorate for months. He had seen human tactics evolve and adapt. He had warned his superiors repeatedly. They ignored him. Worse, they blamed him for defeats that were inevitable. Yesterday, he had been summoned before the High Council. He expected new orders. Instead, they accused him of defeatism, of cowardice. They ordered his execution for failing to stop the human advance. Vex escaped with a handful of loyal officers. They stole a fast courier ship and fled toward human space. It was treason. It was also survival. When they crossed into human territory, they were immediately intercepted. Human warships surrounded them. Vex broadcast on all frequencies. This is Subcommander Vex of the Valthari fleet. I am defecting. I have intelligence about Valthari military plans. I request asylum. They brought him to the Indomitable. Admiral Jiwoo met him in a secure conference room. Vex looked tired, defeated. Why should we trust you? Jiwoo asked. Because I'm giving you everything, Vex replied. Fleet positions. Supply routes. Command codes. Everything I know. But I need to warn you about something more important. What? Overlord Krath, he will not surrender, he cannot. To admit defeat would destroy everything he believes about Valthari superiority. He would rather see his entire species dead than proven wrong. Jiwoo leaned forward. What do you mean? There is a protocol. A final weapon. We call it Sunbreaker. It turns stars into supernovas. Krath has the authority to activate it, and I believe he will rather than accept defeat. The room went quiet. Captain Tai Yang spoke first. How many systems could it destroy? 12, maybe more, including your colonies. Vex looked at each human in the room. You're winning this war. But Krath would rather destroy everything than let you win. That's why I'm here. Someone needs to stop him before it's too late. Jiwoo exchanged glances with her officers. They had known the Valthari were desperate. But this was beyond desperation. This was madness. How do we stop it? She asked. There's a control station in orbit around the Valthari homeworld. Destroy it and the Sunbreaker network becomes useless. But you'll have to fight through their entire defensive fleet to reach it. How long do we have? Days, maybe a week. Krath is unpredictable now. He knows he's losing. He might activate it at any time. Jiwoo stood. Thank you, Vex. The war room aboard the Indomitable was packed. Every commander, every captain, every officer who could attend stood around the tactical display. The hologram showed the Valthari homeworld system in detail. Their defensive fleet was massive. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. The Sunbreaker control station hung in high orbit, protected by layers of shields and automated defenses. Admiral Jiwoo looked at her people. Some had been with her since the first battle at New Jeju. Others had joined along the way. All of them looked tired, worn down by months of constant fighting, but their eyes were determined. We have 72 hours, she said. According to Vex, Overlord Krath will activate the Sunbreaker protocol if he believes defeat is certain. Our attack will convince him, so we need to disable that station before he can complete the activation sequence. Captain Tae-yang studied the display. We'll take massive casualties. Even if we succeed, half our fleet might not survive. I know, Jiwoo said quietly. That's why I'm giving everyone a choice. This mission is voluntary. Any ship that wants to withdraw can do so. No questions asked. No judgment. The room was silent. Then one captain spoke. Admiral, with respect, where would we go? Our colonies are in range of the Sunbreaker. Our families. If we don't stop this, everyone dies anyway. Another captain nodded. We didn't come this far to run now. One by one, every commander confirmed their participation. Not a single ship withdrew. Jiwoo felt pride mixed with sorrow. These people were about to face the deadliest battle of the war. Many would not survive. But they came anyway, because that's what humans did. All right, Jiwoo said. Here's the plan. We hit them with everything at once. No holding back. No reserves. The main fleet engages their defensive forces. Fighter squadrons under Lieutenant Hyun-woo will target the Sunbreaker station. Captain Tae-yang's Marines will board if we can get close enough. Dr. Minji's team will jam their communications to slow down the activation sequence. Questions? Dr. Minji raised her hand. What if we fail? Jiwoo met her eyes. Then we die fighting. But we don't fail. We can't. Too many people are depending on us. The human fleet assembled at the edge of the Valthari homeworld system. 400 ships. Some were proper warships. Others were converted civilian vessels. A few were badly damaged from previous battles, but still operational. Together, they represented everything humanity could bring to bear. Lieutenant Hyun-woo sat in his fighter running pre-flight checks. His squadron had been designated for the most dangerous mission: destroy the Sunbreaker control station. It was a suicide run. Everyone knew it. His pilots volunteered anyway. His wingman, Ki-jun, spoke over the private channel. Think we'll make it back this time? Hyun-woo smiled. Don't worry. If I can survive 12 days in a broken fighter, I can survive this. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. Admiral Jiwoo's voice came over all frequencies. All ships, this is Admiral Jiwoo. 8 months ago, the Valthari attacked New Jeju without provocation. They thought we would surrender. They thought we were weak. Today we show them the truth. We are the species that survived ice ages and predators. We are the species that turned hostile planets into homes. We are the species that never gives up. Today we end this war. All ships advance. The human fleet accelerated toward the Valthari homeworld. Overlord Krath watched them come. His defensive fleet outnumbered the humans. His weapons were superior. His shields were stronger. By every logical calculation, he should win. But he had learned that humans didn't follow logic. All forces engage, he ordered. The battle began. Energy beams and missiles filled space. Ships exploded. Fighters dodged through debris. It was the largest battle in galactic history. Both sides committed everything they had. The Valthari defense was strong. Human ships died in the first minutes. Entire squadrons were destroyed. But the humans kept coming. For every ship that fell, 2 more pushed forward. It was like fighting a tide that refused to retreat. Aboard the Indomitable, Jiwoo directed the battle with cold efficiency. Target their command carriers. Ignore the escorts. All fighters clear a path for Hyunwoo's squadron. The ship shook from impacts. Damage reports flooded in. Portside shields failing. Forward weapons offline. Engineering reporting fires in 3 sections. But the crew kept working. Kept fighting. Captain Tae-yang stood in the Marine deployment bay, checking his armor one last time. Sergeant Haewon moved among the Marines, ensuring everyone was ready. "Sergeant," one young Marine said, "I'm scared." Haewon stopped and looked at him. "Good, fear keeps you alive. But don't let it stop you. Remember your training. Watch your squad mates. And trust me to keep you breathing. What if I die? Then you die protecting people who need you. There are worse ways to go." She moved on to the next Marine. Lieutenant Hyunwoo's squadron broke through the Valthari fighter screen. It cost them. Half his pilots died in the first 5 minutes. The survivors pushed toward the Sunbreaker station. "Phoenix leader to all fighters," Hyunwoo transmitted. "Target the station's power core. It's the weak point. Hit it with everything you have." Valthari interceptors pursued them. Automated defenses opened fire. Fighters exploded one by one. Kijun's fighter took a hit that crippled his engines. "I'm done," Kijun said calmly. "My ship's dead, ejecting." "Negative," Hyunwoo replied. "Use your remaining fuel. Ram the station." There was a pause. Then Kijun laughed. "You're insane, I love it. See you on the other side, Phoenix." Kijun's fighter accelerated toward the station. He crashed into the shield generator at full speed. The explosion weakened the defenses enough for the remaining fighters to get through. Hyunwoo led the final approach. Only 3 fighters remained. They launched their missiles at point-blank range and tried to pull away. 2 made it. Hyunwoo's fighter was caught in the blast. His fighter tumbled through space, burning. Systems failed. Life support went offline. He ejected just as the fighter exploded completely. His escape pod drifted away from the battle, but the missiles had hit their target. The Sunbreaker station's power core was critically damaged. It began to fail. Inside his command center, Overlord Krath stared at the screens in disbelief. The station was failing. His defensive fleet was being overwhelmed. The humans were winning despite impossible odds. He reached for the Sunbreaker activation controls, but the station was offline. The weapon couldn't be activated. His final option was gone. An explosion rocked his ship. Human Marines were boarding. Captain Tae-yang led the assault through the Valthari command ship. His Marines fought room by room, corridor by corridor. Sergeant Haewon moved with them, treating wounds, keeping soldiers alive. One Marine took a direct hit. Haewon rushed to his side. The wound was catastrophic. She looked into his eyes and saw acceptance. "I did good?" the Marine whispered. Haewon worked frantically. "You did great. Now stop talking." But she couldn't save him. He died before she could stabilize his vitals. Haewon closed his eyes gently, then stood and continued forward. There were others who needed her. Later, when someone asked how she kept going after losing patients, she simply said, "Because the living still need me." "I can mourn later." Tae-yang reached the command center. Overlord Krath was waiting, weapon in hand. Around him, his bridge crew lay dead or wounded. "Why?" Krath asked. "Why won't you stop?" Tae-yang lowered his weapon slightly. "Because you started this. You attacked our people. You forced this war. We're just finishing what you began. We are superior, more advanced, more evolved. We should have won. You are superior," Tae-yang agreed. "Better weapons, better shields, better technology. But you made one mistake. You thought that mattered. It should matter. Maybe in a logical war. But humans don't fight logical wars. We fight wars we can't afford to lose. And when everything is at stake, we don't calculate odds. We just fight." Krath raised his weapon. Tae-yang was faster. The Overlord fell, mortally wounded. Tae-yang knelt beside him. "You could have negotiated," Tae-yang said quietly. "Could have made peace. Your pride killed you." Krath's eyes closed. The war's architect was dead. The battle ended 3 hours later. The Valthari fleet surrendered when word spread that Krath was dead. Without their leader, without the Sunbreaker weapon, without any hope of victory, they simply stopped fighting. Human casualties were enormous. 70% of the fleet was damaged or destroyed, thousands dead, tens of thousands wounded, but they had won. Admiral Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable looking at the Valthari homeworld below. So much death, so much destruction, all because one species thought they were superior. Admiral, her communications officer said, "We're receiving surrender terms from the Valthari High Council. They're offering unconditional surrender." Jiwoo nodded slowly. "Accept their surrender, but include our terms. No occupation, no slavery, no revenge. They pay reparations to rebuild what they destroyed, and they guarantee this never happens again." "Admiral, we could demand more." "They're defenseless, we could," Jiwoo agreed. "But we're not them. We didn't fight this war for conquest. We fought it to survive. Now that we've won, we show mercy. That's what separates us from people like Krath." 3 days later, rescue teams found Lieutenant Hyunwoo's escape pod drifting in space. He was unconscious but alive. When he woke up in the medical bay, Sergeant Haewon was there. 2 years after the war ended, everything had changed. Earth received an invitation to join the Galactic Council, a coalition of over 100 spacefaring species. It was unprecedented. Most species waited decades or centuries for such recognition. Humanity received it in less than a year after their first major conflict. The reason was simple. Nobody wanted to risk fighting them. Admiral Jiwoo, now Ambassador Jiwoo, stood before the assembled council. Representatives from dozens of species watched her with expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. The chamber was enormous, designed to accommodate beings of vastly different sizes and environments. She wore her military uniform, a reminder of who humans were and what they could do. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began. 2 years ago, my species was attacked without provocation. We defended ourselves. We fought back. We won. Not because we were the strongest or the most advanced. We won because we refused to surrender." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We didn't want that war. We wanted to explore, to build, to learn from our neighbors. The Valthari forced us to remember what we were, what we are. Persistence hunters from a death world. We survived ice ages and plagues. We survived predators and disasters. We survived each other, and we will survive anything this galaxy throws at us." Another pause. The chamber was completely silent. "We don't forget what happened. We will never forget. But we also believe in second chances. We showed the Valthari mercy because vengeance solves nothing. We want to be your friends, your partners, your allies. But understand this. If you threaten us again, if you attack our people, if you force us to fight, we will not stop until you do. We can be the best friends you ever have, or we can be the nightmare you never wake from. The choice is always yours." She sat down. The council erupted in discussion. Some species welcomed humanity enthusiastically. Others remained cautious. But all of them understood the message. Humans were now a major power in the galaxy, and crossing them was not advisable. On New Jeju, where the war had begun, a memorial was unveiled. The monument stood in the rebuilt capital, visible from orbit. It was a simple design, a column of black stone reaching toward the sky. On it were inscribed every name of every human who died in the war. Civilian and military, young and old, every single person. At the base was a holographic display showing a human soldier, wounded but still standing. Below it, 3 words, "We don't stop." Captain Taeyang, now General Taeyang, spoke at the dedication ceremony. Thousands attended in person. Millions watched across human space. Even some Valthari came seeking forgiveness. "We stand here today in a city that burned," Taeyang said, "on a world that was attacked, among people who lost loved ones. We paid in blood for a lesson the galaxy needed to learn. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We are not the most advanced. But we are the ones who will never surrender, who will never quit, who will fight through impossible odds because our families depend on us." He gestured to the names on the monument. These people gave everything. They deserve to be remembered, not just as casualties, not just as numbers, but as individuals who chose to stand and fight when running would have been easier. They are heroes, and we will never forget them. Dr. Minji published her book 6 months after the war ended. It was titled simply, Why Humans Win. The book became required reading in every galactic military academy. Species that had never fought humans wanted to understand them. Species that had fought humans wanted to ensure they never did again. Minji's thesis was straightforward. Humans evolved in constant crisis. Every generation faced challenges that required persistence to overcome. Those who gave up died. Those who kept trying survived. Over millions of years, this created a species psychologically incapable of accepting defeat. The book included interviews with Valthari survivors. Their accounts were chilling. They described watching human ships continue fighting after they should have been destroyed, watching human soldiers advance despite catastrophic wounds, watching an entire species mobilize for total war without hesitation or doubt. One Valthari commander was quoted extensively. "We calculated our victories based on logic and mathematics. The humans calculated theirs based on how much they were willing to sacrifice. We could never match that. You cannot defeat someone who sees death as just another obstacle to overcome." The final chapter of Minji's book was titled, "How to Never Fight a Human War." The first rule was simple. Don't. Sub-Commander Vex, now simply Vex, became an advisor to the Galactic Council. His role was to help other species understand humanity, to prevent future conflicts, to explain what made humans different. He gave lectures across the galaxy. His most popular presentation was titled, "What I Learned Fighting Humans." The auditoriums were always packed. "We didn't lose because humans were better warriors," Vex would say. "We lost because they refused to be beaten. Every advantage we had, they found a way around. Better shields? They closed to point-blank range. Superior weapons? They used numbers and tactics. Advanced technology? They improvised with primitive solutions that worked." He would pause, letting the audience absorb this. "The humans won by simply existing despite everything we did to erase them. They lost more ships. They took more casualties. They suffered more damage. But they kept coming back. Every defeat made them more determined. Every loss made them fight harder. Once Overlord Krath attacked New Jeju, the war was already over. We just didn't know it yet." When asked if the Valthari could have won with different tactics, Vex always gave the same answer. "No. Once you attack a human colony, once you threaten human families, you create an enemy that will never stop. The only winning move is not to play." Lieutenant Hyunwoo, now Commander Hyunwoo, recovered fully from his injuries. He continued flying, though he transitioned to training new pilots. His call sign Phoenix became legendary throughout human space and beyond. The Phoenix Protocol became official military doctrine. It assumed that any human listed as killed in action could potentially return to combat. It was both a tactical framework and a psychological weapon. Enemies never knew if they had truly eliminated a threat or just temporarily disabled it. In an interview, Hyunwoo was asked about his survival against impossible odds. "I just did what any human would do," he said. "I adapted. I improvised. I refused to give up. It's not special. That's just human nature." "But you died twice according to enemy sensors," the interviewer pressed. "How do you keep coming back?" Hyunwoo smiled. "We all came back. Every human who died in that war is still here. In the stations we rebuilt. In the colonies we saved. In the galaxy we changed. We don't die. We adapt, we endure. We persist. That's what makes us dangerous." Sergeant Haewon, now Lieutenant Haewon, continued her work as a combat medic. She trained new medics with the same fierce dedication she showed during the war. Her motto remained unchanged. "You don't get to die until I say so." She rarely spoke about the war. But when she did, her message was clear. Every life matters. Every person we save is a victory. Every soldier who comes home is worth the effort. That's why we fight. Not for glory. Not for conquest. We fight to protect the people who need us. 2 years after the war, a new crisis emerged. The Krillian Compact, a powerful military coalition, was considering action against human territory. They saw humanity's recent rise as a threat. Their military advisors suggested a preemptive strike before humans became too strong. A council meeting was held. Military leaders presented their analysis. Human technology was still inferior in many areas. Their fleet was smaller than the Compact's. A coordinated strike could eliminate the threat before it grew. Then Vex was invited to speak. He had become the galaxy's foremost expert on human warfare. The Krillian Council wanted his opinion. Vex stood before them and activated a holographic display. It showed footage from the human Valthari War. Not the glorious battles. The aftermath, humans pulling bodies from wreckage and refusing to abandon them. Humans converting civilian stations into fortresses overnight. Humans fighting with broken bones, catastrophic wounds, and impossible odds. You're looking at their weapons, Vex said quietly. Their ships, their tactics. You're missing the point. Humans don't fight to win. They fight to not lose. There's a difference. You can defeat them in battle. You can destroy their ships. You can occupy their worlds. But you can't make them stop. And eventually, through sheer refusal to accept defeat, they will end you. He showed more footage. The new Busan ramming the Valthari cruiser. Arcturus Station holding for 5 weeks on starvation rations. Lieutenant Hyunwoo building a functional fighter from wreckage. This is what you'll face, Vex continued. A species that turns civilian transports into weapons. That fights in sections without power or heat for weeks. That builds working spacecraft from debris. They don't follow the rules of warfare, you understand. They make their own rules based on one principle. Never surrender. The Krillian military leaders watched in growing horror. One finally spoke. But we have numerical superiority. Better technology. Strategic positioning. So did we, Vex replied. The Valthari had all those advantages. We still lost. Do you know why? Because while we calculated acceptable losses, humans calculated how much they were willing to sacrifice. The answer was everything.